So The Walking Dead is a comic book adaptation of the actual Walking Dead. How much of the comic books did you actually read?
Oh, once I got the role, I binged them. I crammed them in. Yeah, I went through as much of it as I possibly could, trying to find one connections, because I'd known from the beginning that Noah was kind of a hybrid of several different characters. So trying to just get that understanding, but then also just getting like the tone of it all. I think the show has a beautiful tone, but that all stems from people's history of the comic. So I kind of just went through. It was just part of my research.
So The Walking Dead is actually the comic book is actually kind of a multi-ethnic comic book. Is that something that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed that about the comic and the show, because it shows how, I guess, kind of fickle our prejudices are. When you give everyone a common enemy, they kind of band together, and that's what I kind of loved about this show and this series. Is you get the feeling that these people are a family, although they all come from backgrounds that would directly conflict in any other situation. So that's what is beautiful about this, and it kind of just shows how it makes people, at least made me question, and several other people I know question, why do you have issues with other people? If you had a common goal, those are some of the same people you would call upon. So it just shows how fickle that is if you just give everybody a common enemy.
Talk us through a bit shooting that death scene.
It was crazy 2 days. We had been kind of talking it over, and Steven and I were talking about just the ways we wanted to do it and get it done, and we wanted everybody to feel like they were in that revolving door with us. So that was really it. Was it was less about the actual death and more about the work leading up to it. I think Greg Nicotero and them, they were always going to make sure it was going to look good. We just wanted to make sure that leading up to it, really broke people's hearts and didn't see it coming and that type of thing. And that was kind of mainly the work of it, because once we got to the actual death, it was just about all the special effects working right.
How tough is it keeping something like that secret? Because obviously there's so many shows like Walking Dead where they're big moments, aren't they? And they want to keep them under wraps as much as possible.
Yeah, I did a really, really shitty job at keeping it quiet. I'll just be honest. The interesting thing is, as a cast, when the show's airing, we talk about it. So I know there was one time in particular we were in LA, and we were talking about what was coming up. There was something coming up, and we were just kind of talking about it, and we had to keep talking around it as possibly people listening to us. We were doing a very bad job. It's the next week is that thing, where that thing happens, and that whole thing. But typically it's spoiled because people just come home early. We know how long the shooting schedule is, so if somebody's back in LA, But for me, it worked out because I came back within the same month, because there's only 2 episodes out. But my family knew, so many people knew. I just did a really bad job of keeping it quiet.
Talking about your family, is it correct that your dad's a police officer?
He used to be.
He used to be. And your character in The Walking Dead is introduced as being a hostage to a group of police officers. Did that provoke any kind of interesting conversations?
Yeah, it did. We've always kind of talked about that, whether it be, cops in the news or whatever, because he also trained cops as well. Talking about, how when the system falls apart, what is the procedure for that? And the interesting thing about it is he had no idea what I was doing when I was doing it, but afterwards when he saw it, he said, no, that's pretty much how it would happen, is it would just kind of fall to somebody who, in the string of command, was not prepared to do it at all, and they'll just kind of hold everybody tight and all that and end up abusing that power. He's like, pretty much that's the way it would work out. So that's what was really cool about it, is seeing that, the fiction that we play actually would probably play out that way.
If there was a zombie apocalypse in real life, who would you really like to save?
Ooh.
Sorry, just
there's so many people from family. Are you talking from the show or just
No, just in general.
Oh,
You wouldn't even save Barack Obama.
Yeah, right. I think he'll be all right. It's interesting. I'd probably go family and all that, but then at some point you have to decide or figure out who's gonna actually be detrimental. Who of the people that you love are you gonna save are actually gonna probably screw you over and get you killed. So I think initially family, and then my strong friends. The other ones, I might just put them out of their misery because they weren't going to make it anyway.
Do you ever, while you're working on the show, is there a sort of like feeling of, am I next? Will I be next? Is my time's over soon?
Everybody has that. I think consists throughout the entire season. It's not until, you get the last script for the season finale that anybody's calm.
They must make a lot of tension then on the set.
I think for me, I never expected to be there very long. My initial contract was for like 3 episodes, and it just kept getting extended. But after my character surrounded so much death, I knew it was only a matter of time. Like, you can only get 2 main characters killed, and you're not lasting throughout the season. So I kind of had an idea that it would come at some point. But it drives everyone crazy the entire season. Like, it just drives everyone crazy.
Do you think that helps the acting because you're all anxious?
I think so. I think so. Just because you have that real aspect of like, either I kind of make this or get this right, or it could be coming for me. So that's cool. But everybody's paranoid from like May to November.
Do you think that there's any character that is definitely safe that the creators will never kill off?
Nope, absolutely not. Kirkman has said everyone will die. And I think the ones that people would think will be safe are actually the most unsafe, because that's the big viewing moment. They're not going to kill off characters that you don't care about. So no one's safe, no.
What do you think about the fact that there's going to be a spin-off now, Fear the Walking Dead, as well?
I think it'll be interesting. Hopefully it'll give us some insight as to how this thing jumped off, how it all got started. And I've always been interested, with all of these zombie projects, what's happening in the rest of the world. That'd be good to see. I'm a little disappointed that they weren't ambitious enough to go to New York. Just because I think Manhattan is the worst place anything like this could happen. But, I understand logistically that's impossible to shoot a series there like that. But no, I think it'll be good. I really do. I'm looking forward to it.
Your new show, Criminal Minds Beyond Borders, is all about these guys helping Americans who are abroad and get into trouble. So can we expect to see you come over to the UK and bail out some Americans?
I mean, probably. In our backdoor pilot, we were in the Bahamas, which is fantastic. But yeah, eventually I'm assuming an American's going to get in trouble here. Although we seem to play really well together. Because, I think that's where that show lives, is the logistical issues of getting somebody out of another country. However, Brits and Americans, we play well together. So hopefully they get lost in the backwoods somewhere, and then we make it interesting. So it's not just, us calling over and you guys just handing him over. It's like, great, episode over in 5 seconds.
Just to take you back a little bit, what a lot of people recognise you from Everybody Hates Chris, which you're amazing and everyone loves it, including myself. But what I was curious to know was what influenced you to change from comedy and then go straight to something different to.
I think just turning it on its head. After doing any series for so long, which I'm sure you'll see from the Walking Dead cast as well. You do something for so long that you just have to kind of break the mold and turn it on its head for, one, your own creative health, and 2, your career with typecasting and all that. You have to go the other way. Which I'd done a bunch of dramatic stuff beforehand, before Chris. So it's just kind of going back to that for a bit and going, to the hyper real of this show.
And is that because you just don't want some to a lot of people to think that you're just part of Everybody Hates Chris? You want to show more?
I mean, yeah, in a way. I think that's where a lot of actors get trapped, is they do something that's kind of iconic and then just kind of stay in that, and that's about it. So for me, it was that, and then also, I just wanted to kind of do something that wasn't a comedy for a while. I've always said that I thought comedy was harder than drama. Just because the barometer is so clear. With drama, you can have so many arguments about, whether or not a performance was good. With comedy, if you're not laughing, then it's not good. So I just wanted, a different type of challenge. Yeah.
For such a young actor, playing a version of Chris Rock in Everyone Hates Chris, a comedian, an actor who's so widely known, was it a real kind of challenge to kind of embody a version of him, to kind of pick up his mannerisms and stuff? Did you work?
Not necessarily at first, because we were kind of playing him at 13, and nobody really knew him at that age. So it was kind of mine to just play with. As we got, further into the series and I was, a lot more comfortable with it, then we started sprinkling some of those things here and there. And I know had we done a 5th season, the talk was to do it like, get really close to it. But we never actually got there. So yeah, it was, here and there. But no, it wasn't too much. They just kind of let me, play with it and, find who the character was at that age and then start bridging that gap.
Would Chris ever call you up and be like, I didn't like the way you portrayed it, or that's an interesting way of doing that?
No, Chris wasn't really there that much. He was like, once we got off the ground, he went off and I think he was doing, I Think I Love My Wife or something like that. It's one of those movies at the time. So yeah, once we got going, the brilliance of that show was really Ali Leroy, who was there with us day to day, and just kind of putting in the work in that way. So no, not really. I mean, he may have thought it, but.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your new show, Criminal Minds? What kind of tone? What can we expect from your character?
Yeah, it's a lot brighter than The Walking Dead, and it's the thing. The character is, he takes things in differently. There's very high stress situations, but I think he takes each one personally. I think with all of these procedurals, you have to kind of figure out, as far as the main base characters go, how they deal with that stress. And, he deals with it very emotionally. And, he feels like if, each person is not saved, it's his fault. Although he's not out there actually on the fields. He's the one pulling in all the intel. So yeah, it's a different turn. I think it's a little more, it's a little more light, but it also, has these kind of things that really pull on your heartstrings you can get comfortable with. It's a nice kind of comfortable show that you can still kind of get that emotional work, but not, as stressful. I hear people's blood pressure goes up when they watch The Walking Dead.
If you had to compare it to other TV shows that people might be watching at the moment, what would you kind of say it compared to?
Criminal Minds. Yeah, probably Criminal Minds for now, because we're still trying to find our feet, having only done the one episode. So it's difficult to say at this point, with shows, they take on a life of their own. Like you can definitely see that with The Walking Dead. Like the first season to now is completely different, as it, begins to evolve and we really find our niche. So yeah, I mean, we're going to figure it out, but I think naturally we're going to be, very similar to the mothership.
You've had such a variety that you've done so far. Is there anything is there any other sort of genres that you're looking forward to doing in the future?
It's interesting because like so many of the genres have been like bleeding over into each other. At one point in my career, I was like, I'd love to get in kind of the action-y stuff, and then I was able to do hyper dramatic and that with The Walking Dead as well. So right now for me, it's less about genres and more about different types of roles. I don't want to kind of get locked in. I'm considering myself possibly prematurely, but whatever. More of a character actor at this point.
Is there any particular roles that you're looking forward to doing?
I like to tell real stories. So, I think the only thing that stopped me from doing that now is like, not getting into the biopic world yet. So I think that's something that I'm just kind of looking at now of like, I've been building characters from scratch. I want to play with the idea of, building somebody from someone, and understanding who they are. So that's kind of what I'm looking at next. Of like, that'd be fun to touch on and fun to do.